4. My cell phone for agents only. Please do not ever give my cell phone to a seller or I'll never get any sleep. So my cell phone number is 612-718-4948. And my email is wendy@mzlaw.us, like Uncle Sam. Now you got everything you need. So when you run into a short sale or a foreclosure question, you know who to call.
Will you repeat your office number?
Yes, 763-450-1624.
Thank you.
Okay?
What was yours? Sorry. Who's your person?
612-718-4948. If I don't answer either number, leave a voicemail and I will call you back the minute I see it.
Text 612, say it again, 712.
612-718-4948. Okay?
Right on. I will do just a quick introduction. First of all, thanks for being here. I know I had said this was kind of brought up by the ALC about something that isn't necessarily top of mind right now, and yet there is a fair chance that it's going to need to be top of mind at some point in the future. So way to be here, be prepared, to be proactive on something like short sales and foreclosures. Number 2, we're not going to go through any of the announcements or classes. That's why the flyer's in front of you. It should have the full month of stuff we have coming up. And then we are doing back to school again this year. It is not on that list, but that will be September 8th. Is that the start date? September 8th. So the week of September 8th will be the back to school like we did last year with CE credits and a whole week full of education for folks. So we will get some of those classes out to you guys soon. And then tomorrow at 3 o'clock, the leadership team will be taking off. So if you have questions or stuff, feel free to call, email, whatever you need to do. But we probably won't answer for a couple of hours for that. So just be aware we won't be in the office, but we are available for questions or phone calls. Anything I missed, Allison?
Question.
Yep.
The back to school, are those all going to be CE classes?
Not all of them.
But
We're
some of them?
hoping to have like 5, maybe 6.
One a day, hopefully.
One a day at least of CE. And then if you want to mark your calendars, October, I'm going to get the date wrong. What? No. October 4, I believe it is.
Yeah. 4.
October 2nd. It's October 2nd. It is a Thursday. We will have a full day of CE that will be off-site, but it's going to be a lot about Google SEO, that type of training, along with some online AI type training. So October 2nd, we're going to go out soon on that. And I know we have a lot to go through, so I'm going to shut my yapper.
Okay.
The floor is yours. This is Wendy. She's going to teach us everything we need to know about short sales and foreclosures and the such. Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much for having me, guys. And thanks for showing up. Way better turnout today than when I was here a little over a year ago. Probably because people are all of a sudden running into more of this and oh, she's coming. I better go find out. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Wendy Haisley. I work with Markve Zweifel Law Firm. And I was a real estate agent for 30 years before I started this program with Jeff 16 years ago now. My husband is the agent managing broker at Keller Williams in Coon Rapids. So I understand your business model and all of that. My daughter's a loan officer. And the only reason I tell you all that is so that you realize I understand your end of the business, right? And by the end of the next hour and 15 or so, you're going to know a lot more about my end of the business and how I can help you with yours. Back in 2009, Jeff Zweifel and I started this program where we represent homeowners in the short sale of their property. Since that time, we've successfully closed well over 4,000 short sales. So we do more of this than anyone in the state of Minnesota. And in a nutshell, the realtor listing agent gets the offer on the property. We get the offer approved by the lender and make sure that the seller is protected legally and financially. But exactly how our program works is when an agent has a short sale listing or potential listing and you want to involve us, the first step is you have the seller call my office number, not my cell phone number, and we schedule a phone consultation between the seller and Jeff, the attorney. During that consultation, Jeff's going to explain to them how the short sale works, what documentation their lender requires they provide, realistic timelines, expectations, outcomes, and so on, answer any questions they may have. He'll tell them what scary mail to watch for if they're in default, how to postpone their own sheriff's sale, and why they need to do that if that comes up, and so on. And then it's up to the seller if they want us to represent them or not. And if they do, they sign a retainer agreement with us, which is similar to your listing agreement. And I know when people talk about lawyers and retainers, they start thinking $500 an hour, right? It's not that at all. There may or may not be an out-of-pocket expense to the seller for a representation. The only possible cost to the seller is a retainer fee if there is one. And our retainer fees are determined by Jeff during the consultation. They're based on the depth of the seller's financial hardship, their default or foreclosure status, and their employment status. About half of our sellers are charged $0. No cost at all. Almost all the other half is just $195. Those people, the 0 and 195, are people who are struggling financially, maybe behind on payments, can't make the next payment, things like that, underemployed, unemployed. But a very small percentage of our clients are doing more of what we call strategic short sale, where they can afford the payment, they may even be current, but they want to or have to sell the house and they don't want to bring any money to closing to buy their way out of it. Those people are charged $395. Two reasons. One, they can well afford it. And two, they're more difficult short sales to do and don't always close, okay? So once the seller retains us, while you're marketing the property, we collect all the financial documents directly from the homeowner the lender requires, so you don't have to mess with that at all. We order title work, we examine the title work and work on any title clearing as applicable or necessary, so there's no last minute surprises preventing closing once the short sale gets approved. When you get an offer fully executed, you send the offer over to us. At no time do you communicate with seller's bank. We do all of that. Once we get the offer, we prepare our own HUDs, we send it into the lenders, we negotiate out the approval, and I provide you, the listing agent, with a progress update at least once a week. And then it's your responsibility to pass that update on to the buyer's agent so everybody knows what's going on and stays informed and patient throughout the process. And then when it's approved, we close it, the seller side, with our contract closer. Buyer can use whoever they want. Okay, now there is a second fee we charge because obviously we can't pay the employees here on a few sellers paying a couple $100. So the negotiation fee, to use round numbers, is right under $2,500 per short sale. That fee we only earn if it's approved and closed, just like you with your commission. And also like your commission, that fee goes on the HUD and is charged to the short sale lender. So you don't pay it, the seller doesn't pay it, the short sale lender pays it. Okay, and they pay our fees in full like 99% of the time. But on very rare occasions, and it's so rare, it's only happened once in the last 2 or 3 years that I can even remember, but I have to tell you about it anyway. On very rare occasions, we might have a lender that approved the short sale but whacked our fee. They're, oh, we're not going to pay that much. If that is the case and it does close, then the listing agent pays the unpaid portion, but up to a maximum cost to the agent of $300. So if we get shorted $100 and it closes, you'd pay us $100 at closing. But let's say we get shorted $1,500 by the short sale lender of our $2,500 fee, and it closes. Then you would pay us the agent max, which is $300, and we waive the rest. Okay, so max it can cost an agent is $300 to use our services, but 99% of the time does cost the agent anything. Okay, if the seller is a veteran, there's no cost, no retainer fee to the seller, even if there's no financial hardship at all. At least we can do for our best. So do any of you have any questions on that at all? Okay, so yeah.
In what situation would the short sale lender not pay that $2,500?
A corporate policy. It's usually some small private investor, conventional mortgage lender that doesn't do a lot of short sales or something. So nothing for you to worry about. And like I said, it's extremely rare, extremely rare. So, okay. So in the last election, there were 2 words that you heard a lot: economy and working class. It was, you know, all over the press, whether you listen to Fox or CNN, who cares what side anybody's on. They talked about the economy and they talked about the working class and the working class voter. And I want to tell you some things that you may not realize are really going on in the economy and why this was kind of front and center. Just a little data for you. Credit card debt is an all-time high in our country. Car payment defaults are an all-time high in our country. Bankruptcy filings in the state of Minnesota were triple in 2024 what they were in 2022. Foreclosures are up 1,000, pre-foreclosure notices are up 1,000%, 10 times of what they have been since the last recession. I have 20 times as many short sales on my desk today as I've had any time in the last 10 years. The increase started the fall of 2023 and it increases every 6. I was working 2-3 hours a day, 2-3 days a week, which is nice at my age. My golf game was getting pretty darn good. And then all hell broke loose, pardon my language. And now I'm back to 6 days a week to keep up with the volume to help these people and help the agents. 90-day FHA defaults. FHA mortgages that are at least 3 months behind. And this is right from the Wall Street Journal. In December of 2024, were higher than they were in 2008. Okay, 90-day defaults higher than 2028 on FHA mortgages. So even though things may be good, if you got money in the stock market, that's great. If you were locked out of your job and you were an hourly wage earner, the working class, you're in trouble. Okay, and it's predominantly in the blue states. It's because of the lockdowns and so on. I use a metaphor for this on how this all happened. When you build a fire in the fire pit, you put the logs in and then you put the fuel on and then you throw in the match. And with my clients and the working class in the country, COVID itself was like the logs in the fire pit. The draconian lockdowns in the blue states was the fuel on the logs, and the runaway inflation of the last few years threw in the match. So when people couldn't work, it pushed them towards the edge of the cliff. And then when they got back to work and gas was almost $5 and eggs and everything else that the press talks about was so high, it just tipped them over the edge and people could not get back on track. So that's what's caused the reason for me to put together this class and explain to you what's really happening with mortgages. And I want you to know, we're in Edina today. I'm from Andover, and my kids played hockey for Anoka, and we called your hockey teams the Cake Eaters, right? You guys all heard that. So even though we're in Edina, and we're not, which is obviously upper class suburb, what I want you to know is that this situation of defaulted mortgages and trouble and foreclosures hits every income bracket and every price range. Okay, I've got several short sales on my desk right now where the offer price is well over $750,000. So these are not the 189.9ers. This is everybody that it affects, because a lot of people with more expensive homes were business owners and they couldn't have their business open. And they got behind the 8 ball. And then, of course, you have the hourly workers that weren't allowed to work. So a couple of things that I want to tell you right now so I don't forget. One is at the end of this class, I'm going to send an email to Trish, and she's going to forward it to all of you. And there's 3 things in that email. One is a copy of the PowerPoint. So again, you don't have to take a lot of notes and it'll be a refresher for you. There's also a couple pages in here that you can print and give to homeowners struggling with their mortgage payments. Might be applicable, good information for them. Also in the email, there is the MZ Law Short Sale Guide. That's not for you to give to sellers. It's for real estate agents. Now, I was a realtor for 30 years. Most of my friends are realtors. My husband's a realtor. And I know this, realtors don't read crap. They think I'll read it when I need it, or I'll skim it, or I already know everything, because look at my sales volume. My point is you have to read this. Take 20 minutes of your time, put your feet up, pour a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and read the short sale guide cover to cover. Because I don't care what market you're in. If you do any volume of business, you're going to run into a short sale, if you haven't already, from the list side or the buy side. And if you read that guide cover to cover, you will have the knowledge you need to answer 90% of the questions your buyer might ask you, or your seller might ask you, or the buyer's agent might ask you if you're the listing agent on a short sale. So it's professional knowledge to be more professional in what's going on in today's market. read it and then save it in your documents. So when you run into it, you can click on it and refer to it again. Also, for those of you who are a lot younger than me, that market yourself through social media. In that email you're going to get, there's a bunch of memes, okay, that are to eye-catching memes that you can put on your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever it is that you use, and market yourself simply with the meme will catch people's eye, and then you can put underneath it. Do you realize 1 out of 15 homeowners today are struggling to make their house payments? They shouldn't wait. They should seek help right away. I can help. I can give you, whatever however you want, plug yourself and put your contact info. The reason I'm still working at 70 years old is because I love helping these people that are struggling with their mortgages and helping the agents take a little of burden off of their shoulders. And there's so many people that need help right now. And when people are missing their mortgage payments, they don't reach out commonly when they should, or they wait until it's too late or almost too late because they're embarrassed. They don't want to deal with it today. They just want to get through dinner with their kids. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow, I'll reach out tomorrow, and they don't. So if the real estate community can reach out to them, maybe they'll be more likely to be less embarrassed and pick up the phone and call for help. Okay. Anybody that's missing payments, whether it's a family member or a friend or somebody at church talking about their kids or whatever, if you know somebody missing mortgage payments, tell them do not move out. Do not move out, do not move out, unless they're kicked out or they have to leave. Now, they lost their job and that's why they're behind on mortgage payments and the new job starts tomorrow in Denver, they got to move out, right? But if they don't have to move out, they should stay. There's several reasons. One is if they're struggling financially, why go pay rent somewhere where they can, where instead they can sit in this house and just pay the electric bill, okay? So it can help them, get back on their feet or have money for ice time or shoes for the kids or school supplies. And there's several other reasons, which we're going to get to as I go through the PowerPoint. And last thing I want to tell you is, when I talk about loans, there's several different types of home mortgages. 80% of them are federal loans. They're called GSE loans, government service loans. That's 80% of the mortgages. And those are FHA, VA, USDA, and conventionals that are invested by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Okay, that's 80% of the market. About 20% of the loans are what we call private investor conventionals. And what that means is it's a conventional mortgage, but it's not Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac backed. It's not government backed. So and there's different rules. Every type of these different loan types have different rules. Okay. So as we go through this, I'll talk about the government dictated. I'm talking about the 80% of government loans. Any questions yet? Okay, I go through this really quickly, folks. I already covered this. So don't hesitate to just speak up if you have a question or raise your hand, because if I said something that's not clear to you, there's someone else in the office that doesn't understand it either. So feel free. The only thing I ask you to do is, every real estate class I was ever in over the years, there was always somebody that kept raising their hand and they wanted to tell their own 20-minute story. We're going to leave that to the end. Okay, I want to hear your stories, but we don't want to waste everybody's time. But questions about the information, please feel free to just pipe up and ask. Okay, so in 2020, when COVID hit, Trump administration came out with the COVID CARES Act. And in the COVID CARES Act, there were 2 directives to the federal loans, FHA, VA, USDA, Fannie and Freddie. And one was a foreclosure moratorium, that they put a foreclosure moratorium on all federal loans from April 1st of 2020 to March 31st of 2021. And then when the Biden administration came in, they extended it through the end of June. Okay. And that was put on to, at the time, the federal government locked the country down for 2 weeks. And then only certain states continued it. Okay. So it was to keep people in their homes until they could get back to work. Had they not done that, we would have had a foreclosure crisis similar to or even worse than 2008. I remember Gary Keller put out a notification. My husband brought it home and goes, look at this, to all the Keller agents that he predicted in April of 2020, that values would drop a minimum of 40 and up to 60%. But the foreclosure moratorium kept that from happening, which is great. But also part of that directive to the federal loans was that they had to offer mortgage forbearances. And a mortgage forbearance, the definition is that if people couldn't make their house payment, the lender was not allowed to report it on the credit report as a default, okay? That was the only good thing about mortgage forbearances. The bad thing is how they needed to be paid back and how it affects the real estate community. And that's why I put this whole class together, is because I work with defaulted mortgages. I was a realtor. As soon as I saw these rules coming down, I knew it was going to affect how you guys have to do business. And this next 10 minutes, 15 minutes is the most important thing you're going to learn out of this class. So mortgage forbearances, how long they lasted and how the money has to be paid back depends on the type of mortgage the homeowner had. And to let you know the volume of this, 1 out of every 6 conventional borrowers was in a forbearance at one time or another, okay? And this number is actually increased because the lenders are still offering the mortgage forbearances. And the data I'm giving you is about 1.5 years old, okay? So 1 out of every 6 conventional borrowers went into a forbearance. 1 out of every 4 FHA and VA borrowers were in a forbearance. So how does that money get paid back to the lender? Depends on the type of loan the homeowner has. So the private investor conventionals, they didn't have to offer forbearances, but a lot of them did. And most of them offered a forbearance for up to a year. And at the end of the year, the homeowner, they said to the homeowner, okay, if you want to keep your house, you have to pay us all the money back and start making payments again. Of course, homeowner says, well, I don't have the money. That's why I couldn't make the mortgage payments to begin with. They say, oh, you can't pay us all the whole thing back right now? Here's what we'll do. We'll take your 12 months of missed payments and we'll spread it over the next 2 years. So you'll be caught up at the end of 2 years. Well, if people qualified for a $2,000 a month house payment and missed 12 of them, how are they going to pay $3,000 a month for the next 2 years and when they just got back to work? And if they were in Minnesota, they're still not back to work, okay, or weren't at the time. So a percentage of those people defaulted, and that's why we have a significant increase in pre-foreclosure. Now, with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and this is direction right to real estate agents that you really need to know. Fannie and Freddie, it's about 40% of the mortgage market, okay? And what Fannie and Freddie did was they offered forbearances for up to 18 months if necessary. 6 months at a time, people could extend it, up to a max of 18 months. At the end of 18 months, they said, okay, you can't be in a forbearance anymore. You have to start making your payments or we're going to foreclose. But then what they did is they took all those missed payments, 18 months worth, and they put it on the loan as a balloon payment due on sale. But here's the problem with real estate agents. The balloon payment doesn't show on their mortgage statement, and it doesn't show on their title. So the only way that you know as a realtor what to put on your net sheet is if you order payoff from the lender. And there's no excuse not to do it. It takes one phone call and you'll have the payoff usually within 24 hours, sometimes the same day. And that's the number you use on your net sheet, not their principal balance from their mortgage statement plus 2 months of interest like we usually do, okay? And if you don't order payoff, and it's a Fannie or Freddie, and they were one of the 6 in a mortgage forbearance, you're going to be off by tens of thousands of dollars on your net sheet. Now, VA loans, what they did is they offered forbearances for up to 2 years. And at the end of the forbearance, they said, okay, you can't extend forbearance again. You have to start making payments again, or we're going to foreclose, and you have to pay us all the money back right now. And the veteran says, well, I don't have 2 years of missed payments because I just got back to work. So they say, oh, you can't? Okay, you have to do a loan modification. Now with the vets, it's called a streamlined loan mod where they're automatically eligible. Takes 2-3 months of paperwork back and forth between the borrower and the lender, and they sign off and now the loan is modified. But here's the issue for real estate agents. All those missed payments are now put on the title as a partial claim second mortgage due on sale. The only way you, as the agent, when you come to list that property to get your net sheet right, is if you order title work, order an owner's and encumbrance owners and encumbrances report from your title closer. Might cost you $100. I would do it on every deal. And you get a title report and it'll show that partial claim second mortgage on there. And when there's a partial claim second mortgage, the amount that shows on the title commitment is the actual amount that they owe, because there's no interest accruing on those partial claim second mortgages and no payments being made on them. So the payoff is the amount that shows on the title, and that's what you put on your net sheet for the second mortgage payoff. Now with FHA mortgages, this is where remember I told you 90-day defaults on FHA mortgages last winter were higher than 2008. Lots of people, okay? So with FHA mortgages, what they required is they gave forbearances for up to 2 months, and then the people have to apply for loan modification, but they have to, with FHA, they have to qualify for the modified payment. So 1 out of every 4 FHA borrowers was in a forbearance. Only 50% of them qualify for the loan mod. And when they get declined for the loan mod, the pre-foreclosure notice comes out 31 days later, most of the time. And that's why we're seeing the foreclosure increase. Okay. So and the reason why so many of them get declined is this. Think about it. When they bought the house, they probably had 2 3/4 or 3% interest, or they refied when interest was really low. So their payment is based on, let's say, 3% interest. The modified payment is at the current rate of interest. Their income has not gone up. Their credit card debt has gone up. So they don't qualify for the modified payment based on FHA income to debt ratios. And when they get declined, they get a foreclosure notice. If they get approved for the loan mod, those 2 years plus of missed payments gets put on the title. It's a partial claim second mortgage due on sale. So that's the message to the real estate community. If I was a realtor today, I would not go live on MLS or do a net sheet unless and until I'd ordered an O&E report from the title company and then ordered payoffs from all the lien holders. And I know that even though I tell you to do this, that probably 10% or less of you will do. But here's the message. This is tens of thousands of people in Minnesota. It's millions of people nationwide where these titles are off and these payoffs are off. And if you do any volume of business, you will run into it. And if you didn't check the title and you didn't order a payoff before you did that net sheet, you have a 10 to 20% chance you're going to be off. And if it doesn't close, it's your fault as a listing agent. Because I ask agents this, how can you tell a homeowner at the time of listing when they're making the sale decision or at the time of the offer, how can you tell them how much their equity is if you don't know who they owe and how much they owe to put on those top lines on the mortgage payoffs? Okay. Now, I had, just to let you know, I was getting maybe 8-10 phone calls a month from real estate agents over the last great few years, okay, until a couple years ago. And nowadays, I'm getting 10 to 15 calls a day from real estate agents. About a third of them are realtors with a short sale referral because they run into their first short sale. They were in high school in the last recession. They don't even know what it is. They ask their manager, another agent at the office, and the agent says, call this lady Wendy, see if she's still working, see if she's still doing it. So about a third of them are that, short sales. About a third of them are, this is how the call goes. Wendy, my broker told me to call you, or another agent told me to call you. I have a house that's going to close a week from Friday, and I just found out from the title company that they owe. I thought they had 30,000 equity, they're 20,000 underwater. Can you get a short sale done by Friday? No. So it happens all the time. And then about a third of the calls are this one, which really scares me. Because remember I said that homeowners are too embarrassed or they wait too long to reach out if they're in trouble. If they reach out to a real estate agent and they finally make that call and the agent doesn't know how this all works, it's a tragedy to me. So a lot of the calls that I get are from agents are, Wendy, My boss told me to call you, my broker told me to call you. I went out to look at a house last night, or I'm going out tonight, and I did some research, and their sheriff's sale was last week. They can't still sell their house, can they? Yeah, they can. 80% of the people in foreclosure have equity. 80% of them might lose their equity if they don't reach out or they reach out to the wrong person. So before I get into foreclosures, do you have any questions on the forbearance stuff? Okay. And again, don't think because you're in Edina, you're not gonna run into this. Okay, yep.
So what we're ordering from title again is something and encumbrances.
Owners and encumbrances report.
Okay.
They called an O and E, letter O, word and, letter E.
Thank you.
Okay, and yeah, it'll probably cost you some money. But for those of you, I'm looking around for other white hairs. For those of you who were in the business pre-internet, were any of you in the business pre-internet? Remember how much we used to pay the Star Trib and the Pioneer Press for ads? You know, my husband and I did a lot of listings. 30,000 a year was our budget for ads. You don't have to do that anymore. So you can pay $100 to your title company to make sure your net sheet is right. Okay, so any other questions on the forbearance? Yeah.
Will lenders give us that information or does the homeowner do that?
A lot of the lenders, you can call the customer service number and follow the prompts. And if they ask if you want it faxed, have it faxed. Okay, they either mail it or fax. So you have it faxed, so you get it that day or the next day. But some of them require you to be a third party, authorized third party. Sometimes if you get a live person, they won't talk to you. If it's prompts, it'll automatically be sent to you. So what I would do if I was working today, when I'm sitting with the client listing the property, I'd have them get on the phone and call the lender and have it faxed to me. That's what I would do. Okay. So, or you can call your seller and say, hey, call this number and have them send me a payoff. And, you know, back in the day, I'm an old dinosaur. When I had my license, back in the day, we had to go live on MLS within 24 hours of listing the house. Remember that? Or we got slapped. Nowadays, you guys have all these gimmicks to hide your own listing, you know, coming soon and withheld from market and TNAS and all that crap. Okay, so while you are trying to hog your own listing and withholding it from the market, order the O&E and order payoffs from lien holders. And when I talk about lien holders, by the way, in the last recession, up to 40% of the titles were messy, clouded, meaning there was something more on the title other than the first mortgage that the homeowner knew about. Title companies are telling me now 10 to 20% of them, okay, have stuff on there that the homeowner doesn't know about. Those can be partial claim second mortgages. They can be bankrupted second mortgages. They can be state and federal tax liens, credit card judgments. People couldn't work. They didn't pay their credit cards before they quit making their house payments. Okay. So when you find out what all those liens are, then you have to order payoffs from lien holders. And this is even for people with equity, not just people underwater, people with equity, because maybe they have 80,000 equity, but you find out there's a $45,000 IRS lien that has to be paid. So you have to order a payoff from the IRS, okay? Because the payoff is likely going to be higher than the lien amount. So you got to order the payoff. Yep.
I have a question from someone watching online. He wants to know how many Minnesota loans are in trouble today.
I don't know. I don't know. I won't tell you something that I don't know. But nationally, it's like one of every 15 FHA borrowers are 90-day default. So, and I will say this, I don't care how you vote. I don't care how you voted. I'm just giving you the facts. This housing dilemma and defaulted mortgages is significantly higher in the blue states than it is in the red states. And it's just because of the lockdowns. The longer people couldn't work, the more people got in trouble. It's just clear and simple. Don't see this in the Dakotas, but it's pretty rampant in Minnesota as an example. Yep.
Often have you been, anybody been successful in renegotiating a payoff of a tax lien or some other kind of lien?
You can't renegotiate a payoff of a tax lien. Once the lien is on there, you have to pay it in order to close. Okay, yeah. Now, we have a lot of people with tax liens on their houses in the short sale, and there's no equity to pay the lien. So in those cases, I get the Minnesota Revenue or IRS. It's complicated. It's a pain in my behind, but and it takes about a month. But we send the applicable documents to the state or Fed, whichever is applicable. Sometimes it's both, and then it takes them about 30 days to provide a release of lien because we have to give them evidence that there's no equity in the property. But if there's equity, they're not going to release it for anything less than full payment.
Does the tax lien take precedence over the mortgage lien?
No.
Mortgage lien is first.
Mortgage lien is first, yeah, and tax lien could be sixth. It could be a first and second mortgage, 2 credit card judgments, and then the tax lien. Okay, so it's the order they are on the O&E, okay? Okay, any other questions on forbearances, liens? All right, messy titles. So, why is this not going? Allison, give me my next page. Okay, here's another junior mortgages that the homeowner doesn't know about. Okay, and by the way, if you ask a homeowner, did you ever do a mortgage forbearance? They maybe forgot. They think it's none of your darn business because they're embarrassed. They couldn't make their payment for a while. So you can never go by what the homeowner says, ever. And they don't understand why it's applicable, so they might lie, so don't ever go by that. You go by the title and you go by the payoffs. Okay, another junior mortgage that's unknown to the homeowner is bankrupted second. A lot of people had to file bankruptcy after the last housing recession and after the COVID lockdowns in order to get restarted. Because a lot of people had a lot of equity in their house, so they took out a second mortgage to pay the building rent on the beauty shop when they couldn't have it open, whatever. And then they still didn't get back on their feet, so they bankrupted. Now you come to sell that house. When you get a mortgage, you sign 2 documents. One is the note, which is your personal promise to pay. It's your personal obligation. You're liable for that debt. The other thing that you sign is the mortgage, which is the lender's lien rights against property. When you file bankruptcy, you include all of your creditors in the bankruptcy, and when the bankruptcy is fully discharged, with the mortgage debt, it's only your personal obligation under the note that's discharged in the bankruptcy. The mortgage lien remains on the property. So now you go to list that house, and by the way, the homeowner thinks it's gone. And they think it's gone and that they don't owe the money anymore for many reasons. One, they didn't listen to what their BK attorney told them, or 2, they forgot what the BK attorney told them, or 3, the BK attorney was a crappy attorney and didn't inform them that the mortgage lien remains. And once a junior mortgage has been bankrupted, that mortgage company quits sending monthly statements to the homeowner, monthly bills. Okay, so out of sight, out of mind.
Wow.
So you go to list that house, and they say I only have 1 mortgage, even though they knew they had that second, it was bankrupted, but they're not going to tell you. They're too embarrassed and they think it's gone. Okay, so but once they file bankruptcy, it's just their personal obligation under the note that remains or that's discharged, but the mortgage lien remains and it must be paid in order to close. There is a procedure through bankruptcy called mortgage stripping. That's complicated, so go ask a BK attorney about that. There is a way to get them off if they do it early, but most people don't because they don't want to pay the BK attorney thousands more to do that. Okay, so that mortgage lien remains. Any questions on that?
Wow.
How do you find out about that?
The O&E report.
Oh, it does, that's what I was gonna ask. Does
Yep,
it show up
shows on the O&E.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Foreclosures. Again, I put this in here. This is a page that you can print and give to people if they're struggling with their mortgage payments. But I want to tell you the process and the homeowner's rights and when they can sell it and all of that. And where to get necessary information if you're listing a property in foreclosure. In the state of Minnesota, when a lender decides to foreclose, and they can decide, the lender decides whenever they want to, when they're going to foreclose, and they can start as early as 1 month default, but they don't. They start making credit calls, collection calls to the homeowner. We want to work out something out with you, blah, 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 blah. And if the lender finally gives up, then they send, which is usually at about the 6, 7, 8 month time frame. Usually can be earlier or later. But then the lender sends a letter to the homeowner that says, look, you're seriously default. You have till whatever date, usually a couple weeks later, to call us and work out something, or we are going to foreclose on you. Then the homeowners commonly don't call, okay? These homeowners, when you've lost your income at no fault of your own, this happened in the last recession with failed government policy. It's failed government policy again this time that did this to people, okay? It's a terrible thing to go through. A lot of us in the real estate community went through it 15 years ago. You know, your income went from 200 grand to 20 grand overnight. It isn't fun. So what happens when people are in severe financial difficulty, especially if they're married, men get angry, women get depressed. It's a psychological thing. And you put those two in the kitchen together and they're not functioning well. Okay, it's hard. The mom is worried about where she's going to take the kids and the cat. And the dad can't even talk about it because he can't provide for his family and he's a hard worker. You see me get emotional. It's emotional stuff. And it's a shame what's happened to these people. So, but 80% of them, and that's why they don't reach out. They don't reach out to the lender. They don't reach out to you and so on. But 80% of these people have equity and they can, even though they can't get back on track with their mortgage, they can sell their house, get their equity out, work a couple years, rent for a couple years and get back on track, okay? So once the lender starts foreclosure, gives up communicating with the homeowner, they send the loan to a foreclosing attorney's office. The homeowner gets a letter from the foreclosing attorney says, you are now in foreclosure. You need to contact us by such and such a date if you want to dispute your lender's right to foreclose. And of course, if people don't, because they got nothing to dispute, then the official notice comes out. And it says, you are in foreclosure. Your share of sale is scheduled for this date. You have until this date to reinstate your mortgage, and your reinstatement amount is X dollars. Okay, so let's just say I'm in foreclosure. I missed my house payment for a year, 12 months of missed payments at $2,000 a month for easy math. Okay, if I get that letter today, it's going to say, Wendy, you're in foreclosure. Your share sale is scheduled for September 15th. It's usually about 30, 40 days out from when they get the notice. And your reinstatement amount is $28,000 as an example. But my missed payments are only $24,000. But in the reinstatement amount is escrow shortages, late fees and penalties from the bank, and foreclosing attorney's fees at about $3 grand a lot. Okay, so if I show up at the foreclosing attorney's office with $28,000 in certified funds prior to September 15th, the share sale date, I reinstate my mortgage. My mortgage is now in good standing, and I get to keep my house if I make timely payments from here on. Okay, that's what reinstatement is. But most people can't reinstate their mortgage. So if they don't, then the sheriff's sale occurs. And the sheriff's sale is an actual auction at the sheriff's office. And it's not the house they're auctioning off. It's the lien rights against the property that is auctioned off at the sheriff's sale, because the homeowner is still the fee owner during the redemption period. So it's the lien rights that are auctioned off. And the lender shows up. It's usually the lender that's foreclosing. Sometimes it's the HOA, okay? But let's say the lender, that's where you run into most common. The lender forecloses, and they are one of the bidders at sheriff's sale. And the most that the lender can bid is the total amount owed. So let's say I owe the lender 300 grand total on my mortgage, including escrow shortages, late fees and penalties. The most that my lender can bid is 300,000. But let's say my house is worth 500,000. There might be outside investors watching this property. And by the way, when investors bid at sheriff's sale, they've ordered an O&E. They know what's on that title because they know how important it is to know everybody that's owed. So if an investor's watching this, they might come in and bid 305,000, and maybe another investor goes to 310 and they're the winning bidder. Okay. So, but the max the lender can bid is how much is owed, or the max the HOA can bid if the HOA is foreclosing is the max that's what's owed to the HOA. But sometimes there's outside bidders. So now you have a bid price, a winning bid price. Okay. The homeowner has a period of time in which they can redeem the property. The way they redeem the property is they have to pay in certified funds to the sheriff before the end of redemption period. They have to pay them the redemption amount. The redemption amount is the bid price plus some little nominal fees plus interest from the date of the sheriff's sale to the date they're redeeming. Okay, so if the winning bid price on my foreclosed house was 300,000, my redemption amount will be somewhere between 302 and 310, depending on when I redeem because of the accruing interest. Okay, as far as redemption periods, typical redemption periods in which the homeowner can sell or redeem the property, if the property is under 10 acres, it's typically a 6-month redemption period where the homeowner is still the fee owner. If it's 10 acres or more, it's typically a 12-month redemption period. And the reason I say typically is because there's exceptions to that rule. Could be a 5-week, it could be 12 months on less than 10 acres. There are rare exceptions to the redemption period rule. So the only way for you as a listing agent to find out what the actual end of redemption period date is to call the foreclosing attorney's office or call the sheriff. Don't ask the seller. Some neighbor might have told them they got 6 months and that's the number they'll give you, and it might only be 5 weeks or it might be 12 months. Okay, so you call the foreclosing attorney's office or you call the sheriff's department to get the end of the redemption period date. There's one other place you can find it on the official foreclosure notice that the homeowner has. If they kept the mail, if they kept it, it'll say it right on there, the sheriff's sale date and the end of redemption period date. Okay, but you need to verify it. Just don't go with what the seller has. Because there's 2 ways the homeowner can redeem. One is grandma dies and leaves them a bunch of money, or they hit the red 7s on the $100 machine at Mystic and they get $300,000 and they can go and pay it to the sheriff. And if they redeem by paying it off themselves, the homeowner does, that mortgage is gone, they get to keep the house. But of course, it's rare anybody can do that unless they have a real rich friend that gives them money. So most of the time, the way a homeowner redeems is by selling the property. 80% of the people in foreclosure have equity. Okay, so they can sell the property providing that you get the offer and you get it closed prior to the end of the redemption period date. Critically important. That's why you need to know the end of the redemption period date. So, and that's basically a traditional sale, a redemption sale. The only difference is the title company orders the payoff from the sheriff instead of from the lender. And after it closes, the title company pays the sheriff instead of paying the lender. It's the only difference. Otherwise, it's a traditional sale. So if the redemption amount is $308,000 and the property is $500, the people sell it. After cost to sell, you got $475 left after commissions and closing costs, and they pay the $308 redemption amount and any other liens, and the homeowner gets to walk out with a check for the rest, just like any traditional sale. Okay. Yes.
On the sheriff's sale, are there funds actually transferred and before the redemption period? So if an investor comes in and
the investor has to pay certified funds their bid price at the sheriff's sale.
At the sheriff's sale. Okay.
And if the homeowner redeems, the investor gets the money back.
Got it.
Yeah. Yes.
Family's not allowed to buy during sheriff's sale redemption periods.
What's that?
My dad's not allowed to buy my home.
Yes, they are. They don't care where the funds come in a redemption sale. Just like any traditional sale, you can sell to anybody. Short sale is different, which we're going to get into in a minute. But any family member, anybody can redeem. Okay. Again, only the homeowner themselves has redemption rights, but they can sell it to anybody they want, including their parents or their kids or whatever. Okay. So does that answer your question? Or did it? Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
There's a case where the home is in default because of a divorce, and one of the spouses refuses to sign. Is that going to be a court order judge requiring the sale, or?
Well, here's the thing. You can't hold a gun to somebody's head and make them sign, right? So the divorce court is going to say if it's going to be sold, and yes, you have to do it, but it doesn't mean that if, you know, the wife is mad enough, she wants him to have a foreclosure or vice versa and won't show up, you know, you can't make them do it. The court, they can be held in contempt of court. Only the judge has power over them. And somebody waits it out and the foreclosure completes, too bad, so sad, right? So, and I'll tell you, in short sales, a lot of the short sales I have are divorces. And I do have cases sometimes where one spouse is not going to cooperate with the sale. And even though it's harming themselves as well as their ex or soon to be ex, it does happen. Sometimes people want to hurt the other party so badly that they will hurt themselves to do it. And it does happen sometimes. So, and you see that in traditional sales too. Okay. Okay. Any other questions on redemption rights and all of that? Okay. So get the word out to people. You can help them. 80% of them can sell. And a huge percentage of them don't. When most people, a lot of people in the community think that when they get that sheriff's sale notice, they pack up, they move out because they think the house is gone as soon as the sheriff's sale occurs. And they walk away from their equity. Yep.
A lot of banks bidding lower than what they're really owed.
No, we're not seeing that today. Okay. I've seen only one, and I've been, you know, reactivated for 2 years now, back in the thick of things. And I've only seen one. What you're talking about is in the last recession, we commonly saw low bid at sheriff's sale, meaning the lender was the only bidder that showed up. And the winning bid was significantly lower than what the homeowner owed. So it created an equity situation for the homeowner where there wasn't one. The reason we're not seeing that today, the reason they did that back then is the lender really doesn't want the house back. They knew the house was worth way less than what was owed. So they bid low, hoping somebody else would outbid them. Okay, because they didn't really want the house back. They just want to dump this stuff, right? So but nowadays, most of the time the house is worth way more than what they owe. So they're going to bid up to what they owe. That's why we're not seeing low bids at sheriff's sale anymore. And we're seeing competitive bids at sheriff's sale. Okay. Yeah.
So if an HOA forecloses, and let's say they are owed $10,000, that's the max they can bid?
Yeah, the max that the HOA can bid is the total amount that the homeowner owes them. But it's all the missed HOA dues, late fees and penalties, and lawyer fees. And when these HOAs hire a lawyer, I work for lawyers, you know, God bless them, God damn them, whatever you think. It's like that old line, lawyers are like nuclear weapons. I have mine, you have yours. As long as we never have to use them, we'll all be okay. But the thing is HOA lawyers, as soon as the HOA hires an attorney for collection, they write a letter once a month and charge $300, $400, $500 a month, attorney's fees. Then if they're actually going to foreclose, they throw on another $3,000. So it might be that the homeowner only owes $8,000 on the HOA dues, but the total they owe because of the lawyer fees is now $17,000, and that's their bid price.
And if there's a mortgage on that as well, and usually then just the mortgage company show up and bid
This is what's so funny. We see HOA foreclosures all over the place, right? Just like mortgage foreclosures are up. HOAs are so dumb to foreclose because a lot of these properties are underwater. They owe more on the mortgage than what the property's worth, especially because they haven't been making payments on the mortgage as long as they haven't made payments on the HOA, right? So the HOA gets real smart. We're going to foreclose, and the homeowner doesn't have any money to pay them or to redeem from the HOA. So what happens is when the HOA gets a house back, then the mortgage company forecloses on the HOA. So the HOA doesn't get any money anyway, and they still owe the lawyer all the fees. It's insane. So, okay. I did, if you don't mind, I got one other little funny stuff. People need to check the title, even if you're buying stuff, right? So I had this was back in the last recession. I had a person call me from a big bank in Maple Grove, okay? And not like Wells Fargo, but locally owned bank, but big outfit. And the guy calls me and he says, I hear that you can help us do a short sale. I said, well, I know a lot about short sales. Tell me what your situation is. They held the second mortgage on a property and it was like 250 or something, second mortgage. They foreclosed on the property. This was in the last recession. There was 1.2 million owed on the first mortgage and the property was worth about 800 grand. So they foreclosed and took the deed back from the seller, took the house away from the homeowner. And now the bank wanted me to negotiate a short sale with Bank of America, the senior lien holder. I said, you can't do that. Well, what do you mean you can't? I heard that, they'll take less and let's sell it on it's called a short sale. I said, you're not the borrower on the loan. You're the fee owner, but you're not the borrower on the loan. So I said, it's only the original homeowner that you foreclosed on that can apply for a short sale with Bank of America, their lender. And I don't think they're going to want to help you, being you just took their house away from them. And then I said to him, I said, what moron? And I did. I said, what moron at your bank advised the board to foreclose on this property? He goes, well, our lawyer. I said, oh, well, you got that lawyer. He says, well, I am the lawyer. I said, literally. And he said, well, bad advice, bucko. So I said, well, he goes, how can we sell it? I said, pay Bank of America the 1.3 million that's owed because they're going to foreclose on you now. He said, well, yeah, we got the letter. That's why I'm calling you. So I'll check the title. Okay. So I ramble. Okay. Any other questions on foreclosures? Okay. Homeowners can postpone their own sheriff's sale. Remember at the beginning I said, tell people to stay in their house. If they occupy the property, they can postpone their own sheriff's sales. And in the short sale guide that you're going to be sent that I told you should read, there's 4 pages of instructions in there, very clear on what the homeowner has to do to postpone their own sheriff's sale. And I'll summarize it for you here. They sign the occupancy affidavit that's in your short sale guide. The homeowner signs it in front of a notary. You take the notarized affidavit and a copy of the foreclosure notice to the county recorder's office, pay $46 and record it. Then you deliver a copy to the sheriff's department and you deliver a copy of the affidavit to the foreclosing attorney's office or fax it to the foreclosing attorney's office. And the homeowner must do that a minimum of 15 days prior to the sheriff's sale date. But I always tell people, do it the minute you get the notice. Okay, the homeowner should, because once you get the foreclosure notice, if they go and do the task to postpone the sheriff's sale, then they should wait a couple days, call the foreclosing attorney's office and make sure it was postponed and they've done it correctly. Okay, because if they do it early, if they did it incorrectly, they have time to do it again. Never wait till the last minute. Okay, and I always tell people at least 16 days prior, because even though Minnesota statute says 15 days prior, some foreclosing attorneys won't accept it on the 15th day. Okay, so do it early. Yep.
So what happens if they're not occupying the house?
Then they can't. Homeowner can't postpone their own sheriff's sale. Only the lender can voluntarily postpone it, and they won't usually do it.
How long can you postpone?
Okay, it postpones the sheriff's sale for 5 months. But then when the sheriff's sale does occur, if it does occur, and they don't get it sold in the meantime, when the sheriff's sale does occur, there's only a 5-week redemption period after that. So I said redemption period dates can vary for different reasons. Okay, so 5-week redemption period after you've postponed it for 5 months. Why would a homeowner want to postpone their own sheriff's sale? 3 reasons. 1, they don't have to worry about competitor bidders overbidding their lender at the sheriff's sale if they're going to redeem. Okay. 2, they if they're underwater, you cannot do a short sale if the sheriff's sale's occurred. And almost all of the homeowners that call us are in severe default. And the first thing I tell them on the phone when I talk to them is, I'm sending you postponement instructions if they live in the house. Say right away, say, do you live in the house? Yes. Okay, I'm sending you postponement instructions. You watch your mail. If sheriff's sale gets scheduled, be sure you postpone it. Because you can't do a short sale if sheriff's sale's occurred, or if it's within the next few days. It's too late. Okay. And the third reason is, remember I said in my example, it was a $28,000 reinstatement amount to keep my house, but a $308,000 redemption amount. It's a lot easier to come up with 28 grand to reinstate the mortgage. It gives them 5 more months of option, 5 more months of time to try figure it out to where they can keep the house. Yeah,
Moment on a sheriff's sale.
one time. If the homeowner postpones it itself, just the way I said, they can only do that once. But if a lender postpones it, and it has several times, which sometimes they do for whatever reasons, and now they're not gonna postpone it again, then the homeowner can postpone it, but the homeowner can only postpone it once. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, I think we're to short sale. So I'm through all the scary part. I'm not gonna tell you any more awful things on how you have to do your business and extra work for you, or all the bad economy stuff for the working class. What is a short sale? For those of you in middle school during the last recession, a short sale is when, there's a lot of them. Short sale is when the homeowner owes more than what their property is worth after cost to sell. So let's say the house is worth 300 grand. The mortgage amount is 340. After cost to sell, there's only 276 left proceeds, and that's not enough to pay off the lender the 340. So only 2 ways that house can be sold. One, the homeowner writes a check, for 60-some thousand, buys their way out of it. That doesn't usually happen. So instead we have to do a short sale. And a short sale is where we send the offer and applicable documents to the lender, and the lender has to approve the sale and waive the balance. Okay? So because they're not getting paid in full, they have to approve the sale themselves. So when we get a short sale approval letter, it says, here's the seller's names, here's the buyer's names. This is the offer price. These are allowable fees, commissions, closing costs, tax operations, so on. And here's the minimum check that we need. And an expiration date, a close by date. And you got to close it by September 5th. Okay, the close by date is usually 30 to 40 days out from the day you get the approval. And then it says in the approval letter, if you close this under these terms, once we get our check, we will provide a release of lien to the county, clear the title, and waive the balance of the debt for the homeowner. Okay, so even though the homeowner owes more than what it's worth, they can do a short sale and don't have to pay the bank the difference. That's the magic. Plus the realtors get paid and the buyer gets the house. So no reason to walk away. So that's basic definition. Yeah.
Do they ever not approve it?
Yeah, if the buyer's offer isn't a fair market value, they won't approve it. Okay, and that we're getting into it. Notice right there, 95% of short sales are approvable today, providing the buyer's offer is a fair market value, is determined by the short sale lender. And also providing that everybody in the process knows what they're doing, that has realistic expectations, and everybody's communicating with everybody. We close almost 100% of our short sales that we work with, because we tell the realtors, don't send us crap offers, and we help the listing agent so we get an approvable offer and we get them done and we get them closed. When realtors do it themselves, do their own negotiations, national average is, honest to God, right from the head of short sale department in US Bank, 25% of them close. There's no reason for a realtor to do it. There's no reason. And because we do the work and you just go golfing while I'm sitting on hold with US Bank and we get them done. Yep.
But in the short sale, the mortgage company has a lot to say about it. And with our changes in our commission structures and how we're doing commissions today, do they limit what we can negotiate with the seller for on our commissions? And what about the admin fee that the broker charges?
And I'm getting right to that. Right on this one right here. Thank you, because it's an important question. Okay, so I'll get to it in a minute. It's like third one down. Short sale approval decision, back in the day, for those of you, us wayfarers, that I had a short sale that took 19 months one time to get approved. Most of them were 6 months to a year, commonly a year. Today, it's 30 to 90 days from the time we submit the offer to an approval decision. And most of them, folks, are 4 to 6 weeks, most of them. But there are some lenders that are a pain in the rear end to work with and they take longer. Okay, M&T Bank, awful. So I have like 5 of them on my desk and I want to scrape. So they're like 10 to 12 weeks at best if I keep pushing and escalating the management and all that. Otherwise, they're 4 months. So, but most of them, we say 30 to 90 days. It's better to under promise and overproduce, but most of them are 30 to 60 days. So your buyer doesn't have to wait that long. Okay. And if their offer's at fair market value, it's going to get approved 99% of the time. So, don't walk away from that house. Short sale, 90% of the lenders pay 6% commission. They don't care about this lawsuit thing. They don't care about what's written on line 403 or whatever that crap is. They're going to pay 6% commission, and how you agents fight it out, what paperwork you need to divide it up is up to you. Okay, 6% commission. All the federal loans pay 6. Half of the private investors conventionals pay 6. A few private investor conventionals will only pay 5% and only 4% if it's a hogger, single agent, dual agent. And we find out about that during the approval process. It's non-negotiable. But you can pretty much count on 6%. That's 90% of the time you're going to get that. And short sale lenders will not pay broker admin fees. And the federal loans, which is 80% of the loans, and part of the private investor conventionals, they will not allow the buyer's broker or the seller's broker, listing broker, to collect a broker admin fee at closing on the Alta, and they forbid you to collect it directly from your client outside of closing as well. So brokerage or agent has to eat it, buy side and sell side on a short sale. Non-negotiable, they don't care what your contract says. They don't care. Okay?
The broker say, agent pays it. Yeah.
Okay, so, but hey, pay your $399 and get $14,000, right? Why not? Okay, all short sales must be an arm's length transaction, meaning that the buyer and the seller cannot have a current or previous family relationship or business relationship, and the seller must leave the property and never live there again. They can't move back in as a tenant. They can't buy the house back. They can't move, sell to a relative and move back in with them. They can never live there again. Okay. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. If you smell something fishy in this transaction, do not get involved. No commission is worth your freedom or your license. Okay. Because on a short sale, before you close, sometimes it's during the approval process, sometimes it's right before closing after it's approved. The short sale lender requires the buyer's agent, the listing agent, the buyers, the sellers, and the title closer to sign a short sale affidavit. And that affidavit says there's no money exchanging hands between any parties that's not on the Alta. Therefore, you can't collect broker admin fee on the side. It also says that the seller will leave the house and never live there again, and it is arm's length. Okay. And the definition of an affidavit is truthful legal statement. So when you sign an affidavit, if you sign it fraudulently, you just committed fraud. 80% of the mortgages are federal, so you've just committed federal mortgage fraud. So you don't want to mess with that. Don't do anything that you're prohibited to do based on that affidavit. Okay, literally. And I have agents say all the time, how will they find out? And I always say, we all got agents like that, right? They're slippery, they'll do something, or lazy, or won't finish, or whatever. So I just tell them, well, here's the deal. When they do find out, the penalties are civil and or criminal. Tens of thousands of dollars in fines, lots of license, lots of freedom. So, and it says it right in the affidavit, civil and criminal penalties if you violate it. Okay, so it's important stuff. Last sentence, it's a myth in the real estate community that when you list a short sale, you have to list it high and then keep reducing the price to prove to the bank you tried to give them as much as possible. That is 100% incorrect. The DOC used to have it in their short sale required module that we had to take as licensees 15 years ago. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. You list the short sale at the same price you would list it if it was a traditional sale. Look at most recently sold comps, adjust for condition of this property and list it there. But then if you don't get an offer right away, you reduce the price at least 3 to 4% every 2 weeks until you get an offer. Because people in a short sale are in default. Okay, they're missing mortgage payments. They're heading for foreclosure. The hourglass is turned over and the stand's running out. So we don't have time to leave the short sale property on the market overpriced. Because we have to get an offer, get it into the lender before they foreclose, so that they won't foreclose, allowing time for the short sale approval process. So you be aggressive, but you can't lowball it either. And don't let your seller sign any offer that's under fair market value. Now, you and I both know that fair market value is a gray area, right? So when you look at your comps, it might suggest 300 to 320. If the comps are at 300 to 320, you know that that's what the short sale lender's appraisal is going to come in at. So don't let your seller sign an offer for 260 because it's never going to get approved. And as a buyer's agent, if you're representing a buyer on a short sale and they want to make a lowball offer, you need to advise them, don't. You have no chance of getting this approved. Let's not waste 2 months on this deal. Let's go find you a different house then, or pay what this one is worth. If you want it, you got to pay what it's worth. Okay. No two short sales are alike. The reason I put this in here is I argue with agents all the time. They tell me, well, Wells Fargo said that when I did a short sale back in 2008, they're all different. Okay. They're investor specific. Fannie Mae has different rules and Freddie Mac has different rules and FHA has different rules and VA. They're servicer specific. Bank of America has different rules than US Bank has different rules than Wells Fargo, et cetera. They're seller specific. What's the seller's financial situation could dictate how long this takes or if it gets done at all. Buyer specific, how the buyer's financing could dictate whether or not the buyer can ask for seller paid closing costs. And here's your graph that's coming to you in the short sale guide. That's why you want to read it, why you want to keep it. You look down the left side, it'll tell you, or you ask your seller what type of mortgage they have. If they don't know, or if they say, I think it's FHA, that's not an answer. Have them call the lender and ask for sure. And if the lender says it's conventional, have them ask the lender, is it Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac as investor or other? And then you look down the side, what type of loan they have, and then you can have all your questions answered on how much you're going to get paid. Will they pay seller concessions or not? And how much? Does the seller have to be in default or not? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Short sale offer requirements. Offer must be at fair market value in order to be approved for the short sale. Lowball offers are not approvable. No electronic signatures allowed. Here's where I get all the groans. Okay, it doesn't have to be blue ink wet signatures. It has to be hand signatures. So you email, just like the old days, before we have e-sigs, you email the purchase agreement to the seller, you have them hand sign it and email it back. Same with the buyer, okay, or fax it back. I know of 2 big lenders that will take electronic signatures now, just kind of change their rules. When you're working with us, it's hand signatures only because of volume we do. Hand signatures are always acceptable. E-sigs rarely acceptable. Short sale lenders will consider paying up to a maximum of 3% closing costs for FHA, VA, or USDA funding buyers only. They will pay no closing costs for conventional funding buyers or cash buyers. Do I know exceptions to this? Yes, I do. So when you're working with me, if you're the listing agent and your deal is an exception to that rule, I'll tell you at the time of listing. They'll never pay more than 3% seller pays. I've never seen it done, ever. Okay, and in the volume we've done. But there are some lenders that won't pay closing costs for FHA or VA funding buyers regardless of the price. There's a few of them. And there's a few lenders that will pay up to 3% for a minimum down conventional funding buyer. But this is your rule of thumb. And you want your short sale transaction to be what works 95% of the time, not look for the exception. Now, in a traditional sale, there's things that sellers normally pay for traditionally that a short sale lender will not. And your short sale seller has no money. They're getting nothing out of this. They have no equity in the property. So you need to, and they probably don't have any money to pay for work orders or whatever. Or they refuse to. They say, you're the only one getting paid on this. You pay it, not me. So what you have to do is you have to protect the seller in the purchase agreement. So short sale lenders will not pay for home warranties, septic tests, water tests, or lender work orders. So you switch those from seller shall pay to buyer shall pay or buyer shall assume. Because you need this agreed upon at the time of the offer So it's not a shocker a week before closing, the seller says, I don't have the money. Buyer says, I ain't paying it. It's in the PA, so I'm supposed to pay it. And then the agents have to pay it. This is really to prevent you from having commission activities, right? Short sale lenders will not reimburse any party for payment of staging costs, home inspections, TISH inspections, HOA RDCs, or certificates of redemption. Those are hard costs that have to be paid in order for some transactions to work. Like when you're selling a townhome, you got to pay for the resale disclosure certificate. So you have to have that conversation with your seller at the time of listing, that here's some typical seller costs. Are you able to pay it? If not, we're going to negotiate it with the buyer at the time of the offer. So as long as you get it all agreed upon up front, there's no last minute surprises. Short sale contingency addendum. One thing I don't have in here, an as-is addendum is now required on all short sales by all the major lenders. As-is addendum. Forgot to add it. Also, short sale contingency addendum is required. On the short sale contingency addendum as a listing agent, you have to make sure that it's only written this way. That line 15, the close by date, you give 90 days. Okay, we want 90 days to get this done. It's better to underpromise and overproduce. If you put in 30 days and it takes 35 days, now your PA's void. Okay, or you have to get an extension. So put 90 days approved by date. Line 21A should never be checked and 25B should never be checked. If 21A is checked, it says the buyer's not going to deposit earnest money until they know the short sale's approved. We have to require deposited earnest money at the time of the offer for the seller's protection. Remember, the hourglass is turned over, the sand's running out. So we need earnest money at the time of the offer. If the short sale never gets approved, the buyer gets earnest money back anyway. But the key is if the buyer leaves the transaction, finds another house, got tired of waiting, whatever, and they want to leave the transaction, if they've deposited earnest money, they'll bring you a cancellation. We know they're out, so we have time to market to another buyer. Okay. 25B. The buyer must do their inspection at the time of the offer and remove their inspection contingency before the offer is submitted to the short sale lender to begin the approval process. This is in the benefit of both the seller and the buyer. Seller, for obvious reasons, we don't go through a 2-month approval process, get it approved, buyer does their inspection and walks. We might not have time to get another buyer. It's also in the buyer's best interest because people in short sale situations, a lot of these properties have deferred maintenance and it'll show up in the inspection. So during the inspection, the buyer might decide, I still really want this house, but because of the roof, repair that I'm going to have to do, I don't want to pay $320. I'll only pay $310 as an example. So they can renegotiate the price before we submit it to the lender for the approval process. If the lender approves their price with no inspection, then they do the inspection and the buyer still wants a house but wants to reduce the price. Can't, too late, can't renegotiate. So then either buyer pays more for the house than what they wanted to, or they don't get the house they wanted. So that's why it's important to do that up front. Any questions on that? We're whipping right through this. Okay, last 2 slides, setups. This is what happens with the lender. Why does it take, 6 weeks, 8 weeks? When we send everything into the lenders, the first thing is setups where they take all the documents we sent them and they upload them to the loan so all their people in the department can see it. Then a processor is assigned. A processor reviews the documents, make sure that they're correct, legible, complete. They have everything they need. Once a process, and we call the lender 3-4 days after we send it in to find out if they need anything else. 90% of the time they need something else, even though we sent them complete packages, because they didn't get it uploaded right. Or they said, well, this form is the 2024 form. We just got a new one, 2025. They got, So we get that taken care of. We get it all back sent in, done. Once the processor deems the file complete, it goes to an underwriter. An underwriter at short sale lender is identical to the underwriter on a new loan. They're the people that look at the finances, look at the appraisal stuff, and make sure that it's a go. Okay. Once the underwriter during underwriting, they order a property appraisal. Their own appraisal of the property. If the seller's mortgage is FHA, they order an FHA appraisal. Seller's mortgage is VA, they order a VA. Seller's mortgage is conventional, they order a conventional appraisal. Okay. Some lenders, like Fannie Mae, they order an appraisal and a broker price opinion. as an example. So they order the value. Once the appraisal is back and the seller's been confirmed as eligible, the file goes to a negotiator. The negotiator looks at the buyer's offer, see if it's approvable based on the investor requirements of offer versus appraisal value. Every investor is different. Some of them have wiggle room, some of them do not. Some of them work on net proceeds as a percentage of appraisal value. Some of them work on the gross. They don't care if their seller pays or not. So it's complicated, but we know what all those rules are. Okay. So if a negotiator sees that the seller's offer is approvable based on that investor's requirements, they forward the file to the investor, takes 2-3 days, the investor signs off, and then they send us the approval letter. If the offer is not approvable based on appraisal value and investor policy, then the counteroffer, the negotiator gives me a counteroffer at the appraisal value. Buyer might have to come all the way up to that counteroffer number, or they might only have to come up some based on the formula of the particular type of loan the seller has. So when you're working with me, because I know what those formulas are, say the negotiator says, buyer's offer is at 300, it's not approvable, the appraisal is at 320, our counter is 320. Then I do the math based on the type of loan they have, and I'll tell you, the listing agent, we have a counteroffer. The counteroffer, the buyer's offer is 300, the counteroffer is 320, but if you can get the buyer up to 309, I can get it approved. Because I know what those formulas are. And you as listing agents, on traditional sale, you can't do that. You can't say, well, my seller will really take less, right? But you as listing agents and we as a law firm have no fiduciary responsibility to the bank. We have fiduciary responsibility to our seller. And the best thing we can do is not lose this buyer. Okay, so I will let you know if there's any flexibility on that counteroffer and how much there is. And I'll say, get them up to 308, I can get them approved. If they won't come up, if they only come up to 307, get cancellation, because I know what those bottom line numbers are. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, I think we're to the last slide. We're almost done. People are yawning. Why would somebody do a short sale and not just let it foreclose? Many reasons. One is dignity. They've lived in this family home. No, it's no fault of their own. And trust me, at least 80% of my short sale people, it's at no fault of their own. This happened to them, whether it's medical or it's divorce, or they were locked out of their jobs or government policy, whatever. It happened to them and they found themselves in this situation. So if they let the bank foreclose and they move out, then there's a sign that goes in the yard eventually that says bank-owned property. So there's a lot more dignity to do a short sale because none of their neighbors or friends know it's a short sale unless they have access to MLS. There's that. Also, a large percentage of people have junior mortgages, okay? Let's say you have 2 mortgages with US Bank, first and a second. First mortgage forecloses. They take the house back. They foreclose by advertisement, so they don't, and in Minnesota, if the lender forecloses by advertisement, they have to waive the balance. They get the house back, but the homeowner doesn't owe them anything. But it was only the first mortgage that foreclosed. They still owe the full balance to US Bank on the second mortgage. And do these second mortgages do collection activity after the first is foreclosed? All the time. They sue them, they get judgments. They record the judgment at the county, attaches to other property that they own if they do in the county, and they can use the judgments to seize money right out of their checking accounts and or garnish wages. So in a short sale, we get all the mortgages to approve and waive the balance. We get them off all of the debts. So that's another reason. Another reason is they may get money, okay? Certain types of loans offer relocation assistance funds to the homeowners from $1,500 to $7,500 cash or check at the closing, providing they meet the criteria for the reload funds. The number 1 criteria is owner occupancy. There's our third reason people should stay in the house. If they do a short sale and they occupy the property, they might get a check at closing because there's other criteria. The Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac used to give $3,000 to homeowners at closing of a short sale if they occupied the property. They've recently upped it to $7,500. That's a canary in the coal mine, folks, because they don't want the house back. and they see all this huge increase of people in default. So they're basically bribing them to stay in the house, maintain the property, protect the lender's asset, and they'd rather that they do a short sale than foreclose, because the lenders lose significantly 20 to 30% more on taking the house back than they do on a short sale. FHA, the homeowner gets $3,000 at closing of a short sale if they occupy the property and if they don't have any second mortgages. That's a second caveat with FHA. So these people with MHFA down payment assistance, that's a second mortgage, then they won't get the $3,000. Okay, it goes to MHFA instead. VA, $1,500, that gets $1,500 at closing from the VA of a short sale. About half of the private investor conventional mortgages pay $3,000. Again, determined by owner occupancy and maybe one or two other factors. So a lot of times I get asked, last two things I'm going to tell you, a lot of times I get it asked, does a person have to pay taxes on the forgiven debt on a short sale? 99% of the time the answer is no. Okay. When you have any kind of forgiven debt, whether we negotiate with a credit card payoff or through foreclosure where they waive the deficiency balance, or through a short sale, you get a 1099-C. 1099 means income, C means cancellation of debt. So you get 1099-C for the amount of forgiven debt, which you have to claim on your taxes. When you do a short sale or when they foreclose, you also get 1099-C if they waive the balance. But there is the Mortgage Debt Tax Relief Act, which we've had in the federal government off and on over the last 16 years or so, 15 years. It's now become permanent. I was told, I hope I'm right, I haven't read the bill, but it sounds like it's become permanent in the big, beautiful bill. And what that means is that if you have mortgage debt if you have mortgage debt forgiven, and you use that mortgage money to buy or improve the house, even though you have to claim that 1099-C income on your taxes, it's not taxable income. So you don't pay taxes on it. If people are not, and that's like almost all the homeowners, right? If let's say that they took out a second mortgage, gave their daughter a dream wedding in Paris and paid off their son's school loan. Now that money wasn't used to purchase the house. It was used for something else. They might or might not have to pay taxes on that forgiven debt, because there's other things in the tax law where it might be forgiven as well. But when people ask, we tell them about the Mortgage Debt Tax Relief Act, but I always tell them how you fall under the tax law. I can't tell you. Only a tax professional can. And that's what you should do as realtors too, is likely you won't have to pay tax, but don't go by me, ask your tax person. Okay, and hopefully they have a good tax person that knows the tax laws. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is, I gave you my cell phone number. You're going to run, if you do any volume of business and you're active in your community, you're going to run into people missing house payments. It might be a short sale, it might be not. But I want you to know that if you have a question, feel free to call me, whether it's a short sale related or not. Okay, I do the short sales. If it's a short sale, God, call me and I'll do it for you. But if you have any other issues, foreclosure, I was told this, is it true? My homeowner said this, is it true? I want to give them the right information. Feel free to call me. If I don't answer, leave me a voicemail. I'll return the call as soon as I see it. And if I don't have the answer, I'll ask the lawyers and I'll get you the answer, because you don't want to give people misinformation and you don't want to go by what some other realtor said. Because here's the thing, I was in real estate for 30 years. When I had a question on something, I went and asked Lynn Camp, because she did a lot of business at RE/MAX. So I was with RE/MAX and then I was with Lynn was wrong sometimes, right? It happens. So don't just rely on what another agent says. There's a lot of myth in the real estate community about foreclosures and short sales. And then I'm done, unless you guys have any other questions. Yep. I'll stay as long as you want. If some of you got to leave, yeah.
Does it ever make sense to try to do a deed in lieu?
A deed in lieu, yes. I would do a short sale before I do a deed in lieu, okay, because all the benefits. A deed in lieu is recorded on your credit as a foreclosure. It's a voluntary foreclosure. So you need to ask a loan officer how long they have to wait after a deed in lieu to buy another house as compared to foreclosure or short sale. And that probably depends on the type of mortgage the homeowner is applying for. And the deed in lieu, pardon?
Are banks willing to do deed in lieu?
Yeah, but you can't do a deed in lieu if there's a second mortgage, by the way. So, and that comes up commonly. And a deed in lieu is a pain in the rear for the homeowner to do. They got to communicate with the bank, and it takes about 3 months. Whereas a short sale, I do all that communication and they just sign what I tell them to sign. Yeah.
So in these transactions, everybody's obviously short of cash. So, and I'm assuming you don't work for free. So how do you get paid?
Oh, that was at the beginning.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Our negotiation fee is right under $2,500, and we only earn that if it's approved and closed. And the banks pay it just like they pay your commission. On very rare occasions, a bank might not pay us or pay us less. Then the listing agent, if it closes, pays the unpaid portion, but up to a maximum cost to the agent of $300. Most it can never come, and it's rare. It's only happened once in the last 3 years. They pay us like almost all the time. Okay, because it's a very small fee considering, and they don't want the house back. Yep.
Homeowners that are in trouble with these.
Don't know. I never get in. I know agents that really market themselves to pre-foreclosures and short sales and all that stuff. Go ask one of them. Hey, and I never ask them because I don't want to know. Because then it's more documentation I have to provide. But you can find pre-foreclosure notices if they're foreclosing by advertisement in your local paper. The community paper like the Anoka Shopper or the Lane City Paper or whatever. Huh?
Finance and Commerce.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
What
where
you
they're
got?
published.
Is that what you got down
Finance
here?
and Commerce.
Okay. So, but what I would do, like I said at the beginning of class, I would market myself. These younger people, they're 40 or under. They ain't reading the paper. They're reading social media. So I would market myself through social media to get the word out so they can find me. And then as far as finding them, don't know. Ask one of your big REO agents or something, that works in that stuff. And maybe they'll share their websites with you, or their online access. So the only other thing I forgot to tell you is this. FHA has started foreclosing judicially. We're seeing it all over the place. And if in Minnesota, if a lender forecloses by advertisement, they have to waive the deficiency balance. For some reason, FHA has switched and they're foreclosing by legal action. So they sue the homeowner. Okay. It takes a little longer. There's court dates and then the sheriff's sale. But if the foreclosure completes, the homeowner owes the balance of the debt. And their only remedy is bankruptcy to get rid of the obligation of that debt. Not everybody's eligible for bankruptcy. Okay. So if you know somebody missing house payments on FHA and they're underwater, if they got equity, get it on the market, get it sold. If they don't have equity, call me. Let's get a short sale done because it's likely that the lender will foreclose judicially. Okay, and half of the FHA shorts I get, they've got the pre-foreclosure notice, and then they get the summons, and they send it to us. What is this? We go, oh, we gotta act fast now, and then what we do when we get an offer. My boss, the lawyer, the actual lawyer, communicates with the judicial lawyer and gets their permission for the seller to do the short sale. And then we get it stopped. When we get an offer in, we get it stopped. So it's important to get the word out and tell people not to sit on their hands. They got to act quickly. And that's all I have. So if any of you want to talk to me after, or you have any other questions, or you want to get up and go?
Amazing.
Thank you.
So read the 2 things I sent you. It'll all come back to you.
Appreciate you.
Yep.
We get the guide.
I'm sending everything to Trish when I get back to my office today, and then she's going to forward it to all of you guys.
Maybe.
And you have
Everyone but us.
if you don't get it, for some reason you didn't get on her list, you got my email, wendy@mzlaw.us. Email me and I'll send it right to you. Direct. Okay.
I put it on the Facebook